Welcome to Trek Talk. That's a very beautiful intro, isn't it? I love that intro. I love it. I wonder who made that intro. I'm Matthew Kahn.
I'm Troy Harper.
Thank you for joining us today for Trek Talk. Today we're going to talk about the crew. Those little guys running around in different colored shirts, their little odd jobs here and little things that they do there, and our favorite crew members. There's been so many of them. I mean, we've got 4 series, we've got 9 movies. There's just so many little crew members that have come and gone. I mean, throughout the many years that Trek's been on the air. Some of them have gone from just, basically they're in and out, and you see them every once in a while. Some of them just pop in and out. And then other ones, they actually got elevated to the status of they are, a
major. Yeah, you couldn't watch Star Trek without these guys.
Without them. Probably, I know that one of my favorites, really, I started out watching classic Trek when I was a kid. And one of my favorite characters was always Ensign Kevin Riley.
I think he was a 2-episode guy.
Yeah, he did 2 or 3 episodes. He wasn't in it for a very long time, but he started out working, of course, on the bridge. He started out in navigation, and just kind of worked his way through. He never really went anywhere, though. I mean, he apparently, I don't know if maybe it was an acting problem or maybe the writers just didn't want to write him back in, but he was a very talented actor and a very flavorful character. Of course, in the first, or in the classic series, Roddenberry's idea was to promote the whole idea of all the different ethnicities that were being represented on the ship. So, of course, you had Kirk, who was the homegrown Iowa farm boy, and you had Uhura, who is of an African nationality. I forget which one right offhand. Sulu, who was Korean, I believe. And Chekhov, who was Russian.
Russian, yeah, and you had Scotty, of course, who was
Scottish.
And McCoy, who was your southern rural kind of family doctor guy.
Cornbread fed.
Cornbread fed, that's
backwoods doctor.
Yeah.
But and so then we had Ensign Kevin Riley, and he was Irish, and wanted to let everybody know it. Of course, probably his most memorable episode was the original or the classic series episode, "The Naked Time." That was also one of the first episodes that they did with time travel. It was a really interesting episode. Everybody, the crew got contaminated by what turned out to be a complicated strain of alcohol. I thought that was an interesting piece of writing. It was an advanced form of alcohol that really just took all decision making away from the brain
and released all the inhibitions.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I don't know how much proof that was, but I mean that was some strong stuff. And of course, when it got into Ensign Riley was the second or third person to get this. I guess you could call it drunken behavior in him, and of course, all of his things about being an Irishman really came out in him. And
the stereotypical Irish drunk guy, I guess.
Oh yeah, just very much so. That's one of the things he, swaggered off the bridge. Was all boasting about, how the women are supposed to work and all that kind of stuff. I do believe we have a clip from.
I believe they've already rolled
Naked Time. Did they already roll the clip?
They already rolled the clip.
I missed the clip.
To show Riley. But this is Chekhov here.
This is another.
Now Chekhov did graduate to the status of we are, of the main classic series crew. He made it into all the movies, and of course he got to be the first officer of the Reliant before it was taken over by Khan. And he started out as a write-in that Roddenberry did in the second season for the fact that when he was doing a show about space, he had a couple of people from Russia write him and tell him, well, of course, the Russians were first in space. How come they're not represented? So Roddenberry quickly wrote Chekhov in, and Chekhov was kind of a combination of the Russian guy, and he was also a Davy Jones Monkees kind of he had that look about him, you know, to bring in some of the younger viewers. You know,
Had to be the haircut.
He was the cute teeny bopper, the teenager draw for the show, and I don't think that ever amounted to anything. I don't think that's what pulled viewers in, but he became an essential character. He moved about, and there was often times of course he was Russian, so he always boasted about being Russian, much like Riley boasted about his Irish background. And Chekhov, of course, there was, the classic series is dotted with occasions where he had arguments with Kirk, Spock, and McCoy about, Russian advances in science and whatnot. And there was,
Yeah.
and I think he really stood out in the clip we just showed from The Trouble with Tribbles. I think that was a really good example of his.
It was very good. It was just one of his classic parts where he actually kept every time somebody would talk to him, he would punctuate the conversation with the fact that it was Russian. Whatever they were talking about was Russian.
It was Russian, yes.
And at the very first part of the episode, before they even reached the station, he says that the Russians were the ones that discovered the planet where they grow the quadrotriticale grain. And then, of course, when in the clip that we just showed, when Kirk approaches Chekhov and hands him some quadrotriticale, he, of course, punctuates the conversation with, "Of course, sir, it's a Russian invention." So that's everything. In fact, they even kind of one of my favorite things that they did in Star Trek VI was when they're searching for the anti-gravity boots that the assassins used to get off of the ship with. And they, of course, they find them in a locker by crewman Dax, and they wait for Dax to come in, and when he comes in, Chekhov goes over and he grabs the shoe, and his line is, "Perhaps you remember Russian epic of Cinderella," which of course it was a French, if I'm not mistaken, it was a French of French origin.
I'm not sure about that.
I believe it was of French origin. And so that was just hilarious to see that they actually went back just a little bit and kind of wrote in some of that old Chekhov back into his new role. Yeah, he did not. You're right. He didn't start out as a major.
No, he graduated from a smaller role, much like characters like Sulu and Nurse Chapel and Yeoman Rand. Yeah. And Rand and Chapel made it into a few of the movies, but they didn't have the popularity that Sulu and Chekhov and Uhura and Scotty all had.
Yeah.
And that was a really big thing. Remember, like Sulu was very, very first. I mean, well, the Where No Man Has Gone Before, the second pilot to the show, and he was in that episode, played a bit part, and it's amazing how he grew out of that. And you see other characters who always in the Next Generation you had Miles O'Brien,
right,
who started out as a very bit role. He was in the first episode too as a navigator, and he moved his way up into the chief transporter operator, and then when Deep Space Nine was created, he was such a popular character they made him a main player on that show, and I thought that's typical of the Star Trek minor character to major character advancement.
Yes, they do that. They do that a lot, actually, and of course it always adds in for little interesting inconsistencies between characters. One of the major things that comes to mind, of course, relates to Chekhov. In Star Trek II, whenever Chekhov is with his commander, Captain Terrell, and they're exploring the desert planet of City Alpha 6. And of course, Khan is there, played by Richard Montalban. And of course, as soon as he takes off his headgear, Chekhov immediately recognizes him as Khan. Well, the funny thing about that is that Walter Kueing never played on an episode before Space Seed, the episode in which Khan originally came in for the classic series. We never saw him before that. Of course, I guess they kind of made the assumption that we assumed that we already knew.
Yeah.
Chekhov was on the ship already, but he hadn't made it to the bridge yet.
Well, what always puzzled me was how did Khan remember him?
Yeah.
That was a little puzzling to me because he, even if he wasn't aboard the ship, he'd be down in the lower deck somewhere, shoveling coal, I guess. I don't know. And
yeah, keeping the warp engines burning. Yes. So how did
they
he
know?
remember?
That's a good question.
So, I guess they just kind of assumed that maybe there was a little run-in that they just didn't put into the storyline or something like that. It's just funny little things like that. But yeah, I think probably Chekhov and Miles O'Brien are two of the big examples of how you could start out in a smaller role on Star Trek and then just kind of work your way up into a major role.
Balloon up. I think it goes along with popularity. In the classic series, they didn't have as much interaction with their fans as they do now, and I think that a lot of these characters, the example we gave earlier, Ensign
Riley.
Ensign Riley, and a few of the other characters, they became very popular later on as the show was syndicated in the 70s, and at the time they had no idea of knowing, let's keep this character on, let's keep him moving, and I think that hurt a few of the characters that could have been much bigger. And there was a joke about that in that movie, I'm sorry, I forget the name of it.
Which one?
The one with
Galaxy
Galaxy
Quest.
Quest. Yes,
Galaxy
thank you
Quest.
very much. I just sound like a moron now.
It's all right.
I'm losing my mind. But there was a joke in Galaxy Quest about the minor character. And
the guy that got killed by the lava monster.
Yeah,
episode 81. Oh, that guy, is that the guy you're talking about?
Yeah.
And then later he goes on, and when they make a new series, he goes on to be the security officer. So yeah, they did kind of play on that. They had there's so many characters. It's kind of hard to pick and choose. I think one of the interesting things they did later on was they introduced more alien characters that advanced to become major characters. The first one that comes to my mind, one of my favorite characters on the series, was Elam Garak, the tailor on DS9. He really didn't have much. He was just kind of the Cardassian leftover.
Yeah.
From whenever the Cardassians withdrew from Bajoran occupation, and then he just kind of got stuck there. So he got stuck doing his tailor work or whatever. And as the series progressed, he was such an intriguing character. I mean, here's a guy, nobody knew anything about his past. Nobody knew what he did during the occupation. Why is this guy here? Is he a spy, This whole intrigue about Garak and what he's actually there for and what he's doing. And so they kind of wrote him into more episodes and actually centered several episodes on that character.
Yeah.
The most memorable one, of course, being when the implant that they had implanted in his head to negate the effects of torture malfunctioned because he had left it on for so long and started breaking down. Whenever that started going haywire and he kind of went nuts, the actor who played Garak, you could tell he was really getting into that role, and that was probably one of the more memorable roles with him. He was just really took off with that role, and then from there we see him in several other episodes.
I think at the end of when the series ended, he took a prominent political role in the new Cardassian government, didn't he?
Yes, he sure did. So it was just amazing. Who knows? Maybe we'll see him in a DS9 movie if they make one.
Hopefully.
Notice to Paramount, DS9 movie, please. Before we die here, we want to see one. Really do.
Yeah, it would be nice.
So put a bug in their ear or something.
I think another thing that when you talk about minor characters, especially starting with Next Generation and moving on, a lot of big name actors, or even not big name actors, but actors who had a history and you knew who they were, started coming in and playing minor roles. The finest example was Whoopi Goldberg as Guinan.
Oh yeah.
It came in and on the Next Generation.
Yeah.
And
as his bartender for 10 Forward.
Bartender, for 10 Forward. And then there were other characters such as Lieutenant Barclay,
Lieutenant Barkley was probably one of the more memorable ones as well.
He was the clown, the clown prince of the Enterprise D.
Very much so.
There was always an episode centering on something that he did wrong,
and that somehow affected the ship.
Yeah, exactly.
He was always. I think Barkley's biggest problem was he was always very unsure about himself.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a good clip of that from Star Trek: First Contact. We've got the clip of Barkley approaching Geordi LaForge and Zefram Cochrane to ask him about a warp plasma conduit.
The damaged warp plasma conduit.
Yeah, Reg. Yeah, that's good. But you need to reinforce this copper tubing with a nanopolymer.
Dr. Cochrane, I know this sounds silly, but can I shake your hand? Thank you, Doctor. I can't tell you what an honor it is to work with you on this project. I never
Reg.
imagined that I'd be meeting the man who invented warp drive.
Reg.
I'm sorry. Right. Thanks.
That was a great clip right there.
Yeah.
Of course, earlier we kind of see him right before that whole sequence starts up. We kind of see him skirting around the edges, trying to figure out how he's going to approach Zefram Cochrane to shake his hand, and then of course he gets Geordi in there and uses that as an excuse.
Yeah, and you can also tell by that clip that he's really unsure of himself, and on the Next Generation that played into a lot of great episodes. Really, a lot of wonderfully written episodes, I might add.
Very excellent episodes. Two of the ones that I can remember. Two of the best ones I can remember. Of course, the one where the one that everybody remembers with him, where he is gone to the holodeck and created this huge program, so that he is actually, the captain of the ship, or I forget exactly what it was, but he was actually, better than everybody else, and he was, so he could play out this whole fantasy of him actually being not such a goon, I guess.
Yeah, and in command and in charge, and had all the ladies, of course, too.
And everything, and somehow that manifested into the big device thing that he had, where he was actually taking control of the ship or something like that. I caught like pieces of that episode, and
of course, then there's the episode where he caught the virus. He created the strain of virus that caused the entire crew to de-evolve.
Right.
And that is a classic episode from the word go. That's just the one you mentioned, that episode. Everyone's seen it. Everyone loves it.
Everybody loves.
That's on the top list of favorite episodes right there.
Very much.
That's a critic's choice and a fan's choice right there. It's a great episode.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you there. I just really liked because he's running around sick bay. He's got all these, maybe it's what was it, Tarkesian flu or Hyperbian blood boil or something like this. And Dr. Crusher's she's so hectic to get him out of sick bay because he is annoying her so bad, because he apparently is also a hypochondriac, always in there bugging her about some new thing that he thinks he has. So she finally just gives him the shot and runs him out of sick bay, and of course that leads to everybody turning into apes and spiders, and Worf turns into the big pre-Klingon
ape-man, beast man.
I don't know what that was. That was very
Deanna Troi turned into an amphibian, of course. That was
interesting.
That was interesting.
Everything about that was pretty interesting. I mean, that's you take a human, which are supposed to be all evolved from apes, and they're turning into spiders and donkeys, and anyway, we'd have to ask the writers about that, I guess. I mean, my theory is they'd all turn back into apes, wouldn't they?
I would guess. No, well, you keep the genetic code from every animal on the planet, so through the evolutionary chain. So that's what it's.
I don't know.
That's what it goes down to.
Sounds weird to me. We're gonna have to get onto some of those writers.
We'll get some biologists in here and find out about that.
Yes, that's definitely one thing. That's definitely one thing we'll have to do. Speaking about that, we're kind of wrapping up this episode here, but speaking about getting people in here, we're definitely going to be getting one of the Lamar professors in here to talk about the psychology of Star Trek television and film. We're also going to try to get a physicist from Lamar, one of the doctors from the physics departments, to come in here and talk to us about how the physics of Star Trek work. We might try and get a biologist. They did write a book, The Biology of Trek. Maybe we can get a Lamar biologist in here to talk to us about that and talk about some of the different interesting things like the gigantic space entities, you know, how those could actually exist. And
mainly we'll bring up that episode right there and find out the validity of those claims. But
yeah,
nonetheless, it makes for great writing.
It does.
And a really, really good episode.
Yes, and then of course we're also going to have one episode about nothing but the alien races, and we're going to examine those as well. That's about all the time we have for today. Of course, we do have the ship's log still. You can write in or email us and let us know any questions or comments, snide remarks, anything you have to say, or maybe you'd like to have us talk about something. Maybe there's something you've always been curious about. You'd like to have an episode of Trek Talk. Well, write us and let us know. You can write us through regular mail at Ship's Log, courtesy of Lamar University, Box 1050, Beaumont, Texas 77710, or you can email us at trektalklu@hotmail.com. Just write into either one, let us know. We'll get that. If we get some good questions, we'll definitely read those on the air.
Mm-hmm.
And as you can see, we still haven't made the set change yet. We're working on it. We will get our own set before too long. Something better than the...
Hey, we are still in the process of moving. If you want to come by and move, like sofas and our dining table over there, you can.
Get everything out of here. We live here, you know. We have nothing better to do.
We're moving to apartment 4C. We got great rent on the place. It's running water.
Yes, they actually let us go from time to time. But that's all the time we have for today, and we want to thank you for joining us for Trek Talk.